Hey everybody, welcome back. So as I said in a recent video here, this might be a bit of an ambitious video for me to be shooting today. I'm still recovering from a cold a little bit. You might hear it in my voice. And I am still a little brain foggy from all that, but I'm going to go ahead and try to crack into what I think is an important topic to at least start to put a dent in defining and describing for you guys. And that's my perspective on what I think psychedelic aftercare should be in specific to psychedelics, in and above the basics of recovery and post psychedelic experience care, which would include things like good sleep and being gentle with yourself, and clean food, and maybe doing some yoga, maybe having some conversations with people to reconnect and ground yourself out, that kind of a thing. All of that wonderful stuff aside, I wanted to start to define to you my view, my perspective, it's just an opinion, on what I think constitutes this larger kind of topic or subject or category of psychedelic aftercare. Now, in my mind, the way I'm thinking of it, psychedelic aftercare is a whole set of different approaches to supporting ourselves after psychedelic experience that includes integration. So integration is a sub kind of topic inside of aftercare, which is a bigger topic, which includes other approaches and other things that are important, other processes rather, that are important in addition to integration. So I will be talking more about integration. It's a huge part of my work and a huge part of my message and what I have to share on this channel. And if you want to see the integration video that I just did recently, where I kind of defined my understanding, my view of integration, just look down below. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes here for you to check out and click on if you want to watch that. It's kind of a long video, but I think it's an important food for thought for those of you who are like, what's integration? How do I go about it? Isn't it just like, taking strolls in nature and journaling? I don't think so. And so along those same lines, I mentioned in that video, and so here we are, that there were these other aspects of psychedelic aftercare. Before I go ahead and get into the meat of defining these other processes here, I want to just kind of acknowledge that the term psychedelic aftercare is not an ideal term, not the best descriptor here, because when most people hear a term like aftercare, the first thing they think of obviously is physical aftercare, so hydration and rest and food and this kind of a thing. Again, I'm assuming that's all a given and just things you're going to do in general. Those are all good practices. Those are all important, but I wouldn't say those are specific to psychedelics. Those are just generally, if you have a late night or you have an intense experience, you have an adventure of some sort, those are generally things you're going to do the next day to kind of just self-support and self-care. So those are all wonderful things to do, but I do want to kind of elucidate what are the more specific, maybe mental, psychological, emotional processes to tend to in yourself if integration isn't quite the right thing to do. So there are going to be situations where you had, depending on what experience you had in a journey, where integration isn't quite what's needed yet, or isn't quite the thing. And so instead of using integration as this kind of blanket term for all kinds of aftercare and self-care post-journey, I think integration is something more specific than that I want to kind of distinguish, and I want to distinguish what the other types of post-care might be. Hence this video. I know I'm kind of being redundant here, but I hope you get my point. Anyways, without much further ado, I think that covers it, so let's go ahead and just get into the content here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it here. So in my mind, the way I think about it, I think there are instances of experiences that we can have in psychedelics that do not imply really directly or immediately that integration is the right thing to do afterwards. And I see people often kind of hit me up in my DMs or mention stuff online or whatnot, talking about how do I integrate, and then they'll rattle off some wild experience where it's not really clear, that there is something to integrate that's going to positively impact their life in the day-to-day moving forward, transform their character, transform their behavior patterns, transform their embodied way of being in a healthier, clear, constructive direction. And so I think this needs to be addressed, that there are other types of experiences that we can have that fall outside of the purview of integration, at least at first, that need to be addressed and require care. In other words, we can be really destabilized after an experience, or really overloaded or confused or drained, that require attention and support, but don't necessarily, where integration isn't necessarily the right type of support. So I want to suggest, at least in this video, that there are two other major domains of support outside of integration as part of aftercare. Okay. And so these two are grounding, and the other one is what I'm calling expanding or addressing your map of reality, your model of reality. Pardon me while I itch my nose here. And these are both very important pieces. And let me explain when each is necessary. So we'll start with grounding here, and then I'll explain a bit about kind of expanding your map or your model of reality. I wish I had a better term for that second one, but we'll get there. With grounding, so if you go into either, let's say, a really strong high dose experience, you have a psychedelic experience that's incredibly emotionally charged and filled with a lot of processing and you move a lot of energy. If you have an experience where you have a profound spiritual experience, let's say you had like a Kundalini awakening type experience, and it was transformative, it was healing, and you'll see this a lot, especially in ayahuasca ceremonies, but it can happen with LSD or with psilocybin or something like that. And you have an experience where you're so filled up with life force and energy and electricity, or you're so cosmic and spaced out, and your awareness is so expanded that even as you start to come down off the medicine, ceremony's over, and you're supposed to be coming back to your body, you are kind of rocked and shook, and destabilized a bit, perhaps, or just kind of ungrounded. You are, not really so comfortably resting in your body, in your parasympathetic nervous system, feeling balanced, feeling present, feeling relaxed, feeling easy, feeling whole and integrated and present and comfortable, right? You are agitated. You are filled with too much energy still. You are maybe a little bit in fight or flight. You are maybe just really spaced out. And this is where grounding work comes in. And the idea is really simple. It's just to put you back in the body, back in your senses, back present with this physical reality, back present with the practicals of this immediate moment. Not getting too hung up in the abstracts or the subtleties of energetic, communications, or thinking of entities and spirits and deities, or thinking about the abstracts of the mysteries of the cosmos that maybe you were just confronted with, but letting all of that settle, putting it on pause, and just coming back to your breath, back to the feeling of gravity holding you on the ground, whether it's on your feet or on your butt if you're sitting, back to feeling the boundaries of your body, back to being present in the space you're in and present with the people you're with, and just generally coming back into your senses and into your body. Now, I think there are a lot of different reasons why we can get ungrounded, some of which are just that, from a spiritual perspective, these medicines open up our energy, and we have these huge energy flows, and that can really just shake you. That can be a purifying, healing experience. It can be that we get ungrounded because we maybe have some trauma that we haven't recognized or dealt with or addressed yet. And maybe we have a bit of an escapist, avoidant kind of tendency in ourselves that we aren't fully aware of yet. And so part of our psyche learns, oh, I've gotten out of the box of suffering. I've gotten out of the box of malaise or depression or whatever it is. And it's so happy to be beyond the pain that it may want to just stay out. Your consciousness may want to stay further out of your body and more expansive because unconsciously there may be an equivalence or an equating there that's safer or better for you than being back in the body and having to deal with whatever trauma might be connected there that still needs addressing. So there might be some sort of avoidant, escapist kind of undertone sometimes to when we're ungrounded. Sometimes it's just that an experience was bigger than anything we could have prepared for, even with all our good preparation. Or something is just deeper, we were asked maybe by our higher selves or however you want to think of it, by the medicine to go deeper and really like grow as a being more than we thought we were capable of. And now we kind of feel shaky. We feel a little ungrounded, as is normal when we are kind of really at the far reaches of our capacity and our capability. And so, in moments like that, I think the important thing to do is there's no integrating to do in that moment. It's first and foremost about regulating yourself and coming back and coming back into your senses, making that a safe, comfortable experience for yourself, coming back into your body, coming back into the awareness of the room, coming back into welcoming and embracing. And this is really a powerful lesson, something that I learned really early on in my experiences. I was really lucky to get this message. To come down out of those transcendent realms with good grace, with a sense of love and gratitude and humbleness, both about what you experience and a gratitude for this physical reality and this physical experience, so that it's not, this isn't a bummer. This isn't a downgrade. This isn't a disappointment. This isn't a loss to return to your senses and to return to your body and return to the present moment. All things being healthy, I think that it should be a joy. It should be a joy to expand our awareness and move into the transcendent. And it should be a joy to return to the simplicity and the beauty and the physicality of this life and this body and this experience. And if it isn't, I think that can really point to maybe where some healing work needs to go and what we need to work on. But again, I think that grounding is a separate and distinct process from integration. And I think if you are ungrounded, you want to ground yourself out first before you integrate. And the reason for this is because the state we're in, whenever we're doing integration work or when we're doing any sort of personal change work at all, or any therapeutic work or anything like that, the state you're in determines the kind of meanings you make, the kind of logic that comes out of you, the kind of perspective you hold. And so you want to make sure that you are in a nice balanced place. If you're kind of in some unbalanced, whether it's shaking, overwhelmed and overloaded, or too sensitive, or not fully present in your senses, or dissociated, or manic, or anything like that. I don't really like these terms to describe that kind of excited psychedelic state, but maybe some of you will relate to them. If we are any of those things, the kind of sense making we would do, the kind of connecting we will do back into the rest of who we are during integration is going to be different and probably not for the better. So I would say first order of business, whenever you're dysregulated, and we can kind of look at being ungrounded as a form of dysregulation, is to regulate yourself, right? So that is, again, separate from integration, and one of the most important things you can do for aftercare if you really got your bell rung and you just really got rocked. So that's grounding. Okay, and next up here we have what I'm calling expanding your map, right? So let me kind of clarify what I mean here. Again, I don't have the best language for these processes, for this whole set of things. I don't know if aftercare is the appropriate term. And I don't know if expanding your map is the best term, but it's the best term I have at the moment. So basically, what I mean is sometimes we have experiences on psychedelics that fall way outside of whatever belief system or mental map or conceptual construct or framework we might have to make sense of it. All of a sudden we have some experience that's just totally challenges our assumptions about self and other, about reality as a whole, about mind, about spirit, about dimensions, about time, what have you. There are all kinds of classifications of different types of areas or types of experiences we could have that get really challenged. But the bottom line here is we have these experiences that really, really, really challenge us to, to our current map of the world, our current model of reality. They challenge us to go way beyond it. And for a lot of people, I see this a lot. And again, I want to make this distinction here. I think this is different from integration. I don't think integration is meaning making directly. I think meaning making arises when we've integrated. There's naturally new meanings and insights and ahas that come with integration, but I don't think integration is meaning making itself. And so this is more in the territory of meaning making, I think. So we've got integration, we've got grounding, and we've got expanding your map. Now, why am I saying expanding your map? It's kind of a weird term or phrase. I come from at least part of my training from NLP, from neuro-linguistic programming. And in NLP, they drew from a lot of different influences to kind of pull it together and kind of create that worldview. And one of the phrases you may have heard that was central to NLP, but also just central to personal development, actually comes from a mathematician named Alfred Korzybski. And the very famous phrase is, "The map is not the territory." Another way, and what he means is basically when you have a map, it's symbolizing real landscape, but it's not the actual land. It's not the same thing as when you're looking at a map. It's not the same thing as standing there on the ground in the landscape. Totally different experience, right? In the same way that like a menu with pictures of, burgers and fries and salads is not the same thing as eating the salad, right? It's just not the same, right? So if you have a map of reality, we all do. We all have an approximation, a set of assumptions and beliefs that we think is more or less correct about ourselves, about others around us, about society, about the world, about human beings, about, the cosmos and nature. And these sets of assumptions can come from all kinds of places, whether that's our own meaning making, whether that's, things like science or things like religion or, things like philosophy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So our map is usually some, combination of all of these different inputs, right? But it's a map. It's a symbol. And sometimes that's a high res symbol, and sometimes it's a lower res symbol. And sometimes all of a sudden, just like old maps, that you see from like the 1400s, may not account for certain land features they hadn't discovered yet. We may, in our psychonautic explorations here, encounter spaces in the mind, spaces in, the cosmos, however you want to think of it, that we don't have a clear explanation for, and that really challenges our whole model of what's real. And when this happens, I don't think integration is going to help you, because again, if what you took away from that is maybe a state of overwhelm or state of confusion or state of nihilism, or a state of just like, what the hell was that? What is there to integrate that's going to turn into a lasting positive change in your life from that? What's the takeaway there that's going to be really useful and healing and transformative and practical in relationship to whatever it is you're working on in your life at the time? Now, in my mind, I don't think there's a whole lot to integrate with these types of experiences. It's not about integration. Again, Like, to me, integration is something specific. This often gets lumped into integration as meaning making. So, maybe you're working with some, plant medicine expert, and you're like, holy shit, there are deities and they're real. And then this person who's helping you integrate says, yeah, now they're real. Well, maybe not. I don't think that that's really integration, though. I think what we need in these moments when we have these kinds of experiences is to expand and refine and create a new map and reconcile what, our theories about the universe are, theories about self, whatever the experience was, reconcile these new experiences with our map and model and refine our map and model to somehow, make sense with all that, right? So that might mean entirely throwing out your map of what reality is altogether and letting it go, right? Or that might mean, spending some time reading about quantum physics or reading about different models of spirituality or shamanism or, occultism or what have you. It might mean, studying philosophy. It might mean cross-training in a bunch of different thoughts and perspectives to start to get a clearer picture. I mean, I know that's certainly been the case for me, that I've had to do a lot of study of, here I am making a video for you on, let's call it, somewhat therapeutic perspectives on how to use psychedelics for self-healing, personal transformation work. I had to learn a lot of shit to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you. And sometimes that's what it takes. You just have to keep expanding your map. And, I will say about map making and meaning making, because that's a whole other huge topic that I could talk about at length and is a huge central part, quite frankly, of personal development work and, the therapy process and spiritual work. And it's one of these central things. It's a big thing. But I will say about it that, we really, if we're wise, we will always hold our maps and our models of ourself or whatever, of other people or relationships or of life, hold them loosely. Hold them not with a tight grip, with certainty and zealotry and defensiveness if it's wrong, but hold your maps and your models of what's true, loosely. Don't not hold them. Don't abandon your truths. Don't abandon what you think is real. Just be open to updating it and changing it gracefully. And I think that goes a long way towards, making these kind of quantum leaps and understanding these massive expansions in what we thought was possible inside of reality that can happen during psychedelics. It makes them much easier and makes it a beautiful process instead of a terrifying process. And again, so just to summarize, I don't have a better term for it, but we need to develop a better cognitive framework or conceptual framework sometimes in order to reconcile. And you should always be reconciling your experiences into your understanding in a way that is coherent and makes sense and is holistic. And that's going to invite you to constantly be expanding your map or your model or your understanding of self and life and reality over and over and over. And this is what personal growth is in a lot of ways. And again, I think because that's more conceptual and because there may not be an immediate practical thing from that, I don't even know if that's really integration, because you're actually not bringing information in. You're actually expanding yourself to meet the information you experienced, right? So we have integration, which again, to me, is the art of taking the raw experiences that we've had, whether those were, states of emotion, like profound transcendent love, whether that was like an ego death experience of moving beyond the sense of self and feeling one with all of life, whether that is a moment of aha, a breakthrough insight of a way you could do your life differently. These kinds of things that, when brought back into your life, changes how you feel in your body, how you show up in life, the behaviors, the actions you're going to take, the motivations you have. That's integration to me. Integration is weaving these breakthroughs back into your personality structure and your character and your way of being. Totally different thing from grounding, which is you got your bell rung cosmically and you need to come back to your senses and right, which is again totally different thing from boom, your map and model of reality was challenged with some wild experience you had, some big insight you had, some big epiphany you had, and now you have questions that need answering. There are things you don't understand, and the invitation is, instead of reducing your experience, and trying to fit it in your current map of reality, to start to expand your conceptual map and your conceptual framework in a way that reconciles and accounts for that, aka expanding your map. So in my opinion, these three processes at a minimum, and I'm always going to be thinking more about what are some other ones here that might be relevant or useful. And, I don't consider this a completed list, but for now, these are the three that I can identify that are pretty specific to psychedelic or mystical experience. You probably have similar things after a meditation retreat, for example. That aren't just your basic self-care, aftercare kind of stuff that I'm describing as psychedelic aftercare. So let me know what you think. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know your opinions. I'd love to know any ahas in anything I said or any disagreements you might have, that kind of a thing. And as always, thanks for watching. I hope you're doing well, and I send you much love from my little corner of the world here, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.